On today's Locked On Jayhawks, we recap Kansas winning big in Norman against the Oklahoma Sooners. A little late, better late than never.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Is Kansas turning the corner? The Kansas Jayhawks winning big in Norman, Oklahoma, and certainly they've looked pretty impressive in each of their last four wins. They obviously have the Iowa State game in between that didn't go as well, but since then they've looked really good. I'm Derek Johnson. You can hear me as well on Rock Chalk Sports Talk, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. on KLWN in Lawrence. Thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get any of your podcasts. On today's edition of Locked On Jayhawks, we are going to be going over that KU win in Oklahoma, 78-55, down in Norman. Impressive victory for KU, albeit not, the best opponent you're going to play in Oklahoma, and maybe the easiest, I guess, environment to play in the Big 12 here. But, still anytime you win any Big 12 game against any of these opponents, especially on the road, and then especially by double digits, especially by 23, it's very impressive. Today's episode of Locked On Jayhawks is to you by LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your 2023 goals. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Kansas 78, Oklahoma 55 down in Norman. A kind of disgusting start, to be honest, for KU. You get down 8-2. You have 4 points through the first 8 or 9 minutes of the game. Neither team is really able to separate or pull away. And it felt like that one stretch in Norman where Oklahoma held you without a field goal for 13 minutes in the second half. Fortunately, this one was in the first half, so it left way more time in front of you, and they weren't really able to score either, so it kept you at arm's bay. Whereas you had the scoring drought in the game at home, you got on 10. That was a little scary, 5 minutes left. This time you were only on 4, so it was like, oh, okay, that's not a big deal at all. Kind of a disgusting start. Then KU kind of got it going. They got out in transition a lot. They started attacking the rim. The depth showed up once again. That's been kind of a common theme here in some of the recent games. And we saw the depth really show up in your two previous home games, but you missed it in the Iowa State game on the road. You got it in this game at Oklahoma with the way that Ernest Udeh played for you off the bench. MJ Rice, still solid minutes. It's just important that you're getting some of those contributions now that you haven't always been getting to different points. The defense put the clamps down on Oklahoma. Yes, it wasn't a perfect game. Yes, Oklahoma, not this elite offensive team, but they gave you a lot of struggles in the first game that you played between these two teams, and you were able to really turn it on defensively in this go around. You created a ton of steals that led to those easy transition plays. And well, I think we saw in the two games in the series with Oklahoma, the Sooners half-court defense was pretty good against Kansas overall. It's that when Kansas was able to get out in transition, which to be clear, Oklahoma, stylistically, they like to try to send guys back to avoid giving up transition plays. That's part of their style. They just try to avoid that. And maybe it's partially because they don't have as good of, maybe athletes as a team like Kansas, where they're not going to be as good in transition as the other team, but they make that a goal to avoid that. But if you're turning the ball over and a team like Kansas has 16 steals, there's only so much that you can do to avoid transition play. Kansas was able to get out in transition. They were able to kind of score at will there and get some easy buckets against a team that overall plays pretty good defense and does a pretty good job in the half court. You were able to kind of avoid that there. Really good game once again for Dajuan Harris being aggressive, Kevin McCullar being aggressive. We talked a lot about, Dajuan's impact when he's aggressive in scoring, and Kevin McCullar's impact in terms of, when Kevin McCullar's scoring, it can kind of be an X factor, take this team to the next level. Talked about the bench, how important that is to get the bench contributions that they kind of have and did in that game. Jalen Wilson having a nice bounce back game. He had a kind of tough start, first handful of minutes, couple handfuls of minutes against Oklahoma, and then he really turned it on and had fun there. So kind of an all-around performance for Kansas. Defense really impressive. You hold them to 78 or to 55 points, excuse me. And in that, I don't know, game, it's obviously Because you look at it now, Oklahoma's tied for last in the Big 12. You can make the argument they're the worst team because Tech has kind of shown some life lately, that maybe Tech is turning a corner, and they had some of their losses. Texas Tech did, with some injuries to guys like Pop Isaacs. Fardaws Amick was out for a big chunk of the early part of the season. Like, maybe at this point in time, Tech is better than Oklahoma. Maybe Oklahoma's the worst team in the Big 12. But even the worst team in the Big 12 beat Alabama by 20. Even the worst team in the Big 12 has a couple Big 12 wins. Any win you take is important. But something I was talking about last week, if you view the number to win the Big 12 as 12 wins, which I don't know if that'll be the case this year. Like right now, Ken Palm has it as Texas getting to 13. And I still kind of think that 13 gets it done to win it outright. If Kansas were to win at Texas in the final game of the season, I think 12 would probably do it to at least get a share. And who knows, maybe Texas will kind of fall apart. We'll see how they do against Texas Tech on the road tonight. That would certainly have a big impact right there. But let's say 12 gets a share of the Big 12. There are basically, at this point, because Oklahoma State has turned it on, there are essentially 7 teams competing for a Big 12 title. Now, maybe realistically, like a team like TCU, who's in 7th at 6-6 right now, are they really in it? I don't know. Probably not. But TCU's A+ game is as good as anybody's A+ game in the conference, if not the country. So, I guess they're still like, they're a good enough team. They have the potential. Like we saw Baylor start 0-3 and then win 5 straight. Like, could TCU reel off 5 straight and then you're 11-6? Like, of course they could, right? So I think that if you look at those 7 teams and just say, theoretically, all those teams are really good. If we just split with all of them, that puts us at 6-6. That means between the other 3 teams, the bottom 3 teams at that point in the Big 12, with West Virginia, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma, you have to go 6-0. Because if you go 6-6 against those other 7 teams, 6, not including yourself, to get to 12 wins, you'd have to go 6-0 against the other teams. And what that means is you wouldn't have a margin for error with losing to Oklahoma, losing to West Virginia or Texas Tech. You already won in Morgantown. You already won in Lubbock. You get both those teams again, but it's at home. That left with the one road trip up potential between those 3 teams with Norman. So even though Oklahoma's not, some great team or probably not going to be an NCAA tournament team, it's a very important win for that reason. And if that's the math we're going to do to get to that point of 12 wins, that's not a, perfect plan, because Kansas already lost at home to TCU. So now you're putting a lot of pressure on winning in Fort Worth, and you still have some tough home games with some of those teams in that grouping. But the point is, it just kind of, it's not quite a must win, but you probably needed to realistically go 1-1 in the next 2 between at Oklahoma and at Oklahoma State. Now the at Oklahoma State game is the possible cherry on top game, which you really could use winning to kind of keep pace with Texas again, especially depending what happens in their game against Texas Tech. Because if they win in Lubbock, you lose in Oklahoma State, now you're 2 back again. With at that point 6 to go, it gets even more difficult, or I guess at that point 5 games to go. But this one was very important just to come out with the win in any way you did. And the fact that you did it in the fashion you did, where it makes it feel like you are kind of turning the corner. You've won 4 of the last 5. All 4 of those wins have been by 9 or more, is a very important thing that you feel like puts you on the right path. And now you're playing Oklahoma State, who might be hotter than any team in the conference, to give you a real test in Stillwater on Tuesday night. We'll have a preview of that one on tomorrow's show. We're going to get to our goats of the game, though, first for the Kansas Oklahoma game. First, this is Locked On Jayhawks review by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members that you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your goals. I've never been in a position where I'm specifically the one hiring. Obviously, we've seen it at the radio station, but it makes it super easy. I can tell you this as a potential employer because I have a LinkedIn account, and I'll scroll through and see what, my other friends or coworkers or connections are up to. And you can see job postings easily. You can apply for jobs super easily, and you can upload your resume onto your account, and it makes it super easy just to touch through on the app or online. And if it's super easy for people to use it, then you're going to get more applicants to your business. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools that go beyond resume data by using insights from their 875 million member profiles to put your post in the most qualified candidates. I Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with them fast and for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications, all in one platform. You want to hit all your goals in 2023. We're still relatively early in the year, still plenty of time. Make a hire, push toward those new goals, those new heights that you haven't been to with your business. Small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1, delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Go to the game. Start with the good. Dajuan Harris, once again, very aggressive, attacking, 16 points, 7 of 11 shooting. He goes 1 for 1, hits the three, which it wasn't like a NBA range three, but that was 2, 3, 4 feet behind the 3-point line, and that's not really something that we've seen Dajuan show. Like, we know he's been a very capable 3-point shooter when left open, but we hadn't really seen it from a little deeper range. That could unlock even something more, and that was kind of cool to see too. But 3 assists, 3 rebounds when you've needed him to score, when other teams have basically said, we're going to try to make you score. He's done that the last few games, and you can just see it makes KU such a more complete offense. Kevin McCullar gets a good go for Kansas. 13 points. He went 4 of 8 from the field. He had 5 rebounds, 5 assists. This is a nice little stretch for Kevin. So Kevin kind of struggled offensively in the first month of the season in November. Then in December, he really got it going again after coming back from the groin injury, which he suffered against Tennessee, missed the Texas Southern game. Then he kind of got it going. And then he had the struggle at the start of Big 12 play. And now you're looking at a run of 5 or 6 games here where he's scoring in double figures. He's active with rebounds and passing, and he's continued to just be kind of a rock for you and a stud defensive player. But it's just having him score 10 to 15 points per night. It's not going to be like the flashiest points, although I feel like every game he's good for like 1 or 2 and 1 plays. It's just having that other base player who is going to play a wide amount of minutes because of what other ways he really impacts the game. Because of that, it's really important that he does give you at least something on the offensive end, and he has been in this latest stretch, and boom, Kansas won 4 of the last 5. Like, those two things are very connected. Session gets a good goat here for Kansas. KJ Adams had 10 points, 3 rebounds. He went 5 of 6 from the floor. He had some really impressive buckets too. Like, we continue to see him add more confidence in his repertoire, whether it's shooting that jump shot. I think he went 1 of 2 at the free throw, which if he goes 1 of 2 on the mid-range free throw and jump shot every game, you 100% take that. Like, first of all, that's a good shooting percentage from that spot. For 2-point mid-range shots, like 50% is actually very good. And also, especially for him, because it's enough to keep the defense honest, space him out a little bit. You see him continue to be more comfortable with that spin move, and even had foul trouble, but he still found a way to be good. Ernest Udeh, like both Ernest and KJ probably deserve this individually, but I think it's even more lopsided when you kind of add their 2 numbers together. Ernest had 8 points. He had 4 rebounds. He went 4-4 from the field, filled in really well for KJ when he was in foul trouble. And Ernest just is an absolute lob threat. It seems like early in the year, Kansas was having a lot of issues throwing those lobs to like Ernest Udeh and Zuby Ejiofor. It felt like sometimes maybe they were forcing it a bit. They were just trying to do something that wasn't there. Sometimes maybe the pass was bad. Sometimes maybe the roller's timing was off, or his jump was off, or he just dropped the ball. It seems like they've figured out that chemistry. It seems like they've figured out that connection, which makes sense because in cases of both those centers who are really catching the lobs with both Zuby and Ernest, although Zuby obviously, been injured, though came back in this game. It feels like they've really ironed out their kinks. And like I was saying, it makes sense because you have young freshman centers. It was going to take some time to establish that chemistry. It seems like KU really has with their ability to hit those lob dunks, hit those alley-oop dunks. And even though this isn't a Kansas team who gets those easy duck-ins and post-ups, you have to find other ways to get easy baskets, to get dunks, to get open 2-point shots. That's one of them right there. Get those alley-oops, and Ernest is providing that for you right now. But yeah, I thought both of them did really well defensively too. You add up their stats, that's 18 points and 7 rebounds between the two of them. If you add in Zuby Ejiofor, who got a few minutes too, the centers combined for 18 points, 9 of 10 from the floor, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. That'll play. That's all conference numbers right there. The defense gets a good goat for Kansas. Oklahoma was held to just 41% on 2-point shots. That is their 3rd worst of the season. I thought that KU did a lot better job in space with Ernest Udeh out there. Like, the Baylor game is the one that sticks out, and that's a tough game. Baylor has one of the best offenses in the country, 3 really good guards, and for Ernest. He was just kind of trying to get back into the swing of things when he came in that game. He got lost a few times on ball screens. I think you've seen that part of his game really improve here, like in this game specifically. He was really good, and we've seen it a couple times, not just this game, but in recent games where he's been switched on to someone and he's actually forced to steal. Like it happened against Texas that led to a run out. I think it was the run out that led to like the Grady Dick step back three, and he got a steal in this game that led to a run out. Like he's had good active hands in those situations. He's a freshman. He's, still green in that regard. Like there are going to be times he still does get lost in pick and roll or doesn't know where to go. There are going to be times where he does get matched up on a guard and, no center, even good switchable centers in the NBA are going to like keep a switch in front of them every time. But can they hold their own? Ernest in that game very much did. And that's going to be important for you playing the way that you really want to. And we've seen Kansas kind of switch five the last couple games. We saw it in the Baylor game. And like I said, it kind of was problematic for Kansas in the first half, though they really picked it up in the second half. We've seen some past seasons where KU's made a switch in what they do defensively. Like you think of the season 2 years ago where it didn't end well for KU. They lose in the second round to USC. But from like February till the tournament started, before they had their COVID issues, they became like the best defense in the country for that like stretch. And they just changed up how they were like guarding ball screens and doing some different things that, I'm not an expert at, but Bill Self certainly is. And I wonder if that's the switch they're going to make moving forward, where they're just going to be a switch everything type of team and just sticking with that kind of mentality and everything, that you're just going to be used to that and they can kind of hone their skills in that regard. They did it against Oklahoma and it worked out pretty well. But yeah, 41% on twos in that game for OU, the third worst of the season. And you flip that to the first time they played, Oklahoma's 2-point percentage was the worst that Kansas has allowed defensively this year. So you had your worst 2-point defense game against OU at home. You had one of your best in the game in Norman. Good switch from the defense there. KU also forced 24 turnovers, 16 of which were steals. That is an insanely high number. Leads the easy buckets. Defense was great. Led to good offense for KU. The last one for Good Goats, Jalen Wilson after his slow start. I think he started 1 for 5. I don't remember if it was 0 for 4, 1 for 5, but he was for sure 1 for 5. So I don't know if it was 0 for 4 and then he hit the shot, or if it was like 1 for 4 and then he went 1 for 5. But either way, it was 1 for 5. After the 1 for 5 start, he went 6 of 12. He ended up with 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, picked it back up after that slow start, which really felt like a carryover from the Texas game, shook it off easily. That's what you expect from your All-American candidate, from your National Player of the Year candidate, and Jalen continues to show just that. Our bad goats of the game, we only got 2 of them, I guess. Joe Yesufu really struggled. Really liked his game against Texas, so you were hoping that he was going to be able to build off of it. Obviously, Bobby Pettiford didn't play, still injured, and you're kind of hoping that Joe can maybe take advantage of these minutes where he goes, I have a higher floor for minutes now. Confidence in me. I'm going to get things going. Well, he had 0 points, 0 for 4 from the field in 9 minutes. The thing that gets you is like, if you come in off the bench and you're asked to just be a shooter, which is basically what Joe's being asked to do, come off the bench, be a scorer, there are going to be nights where shots just don't fall. He's a 5'10" guard. Like, he's not a 6'10" big man. He's not Zach Edey, who's just gonna down night for him is only shooting 55%. No, like, shooters are gonna have bad shooting games. So that's understandable. But some of it was very wild, which that part of it you don't totally love. But again, at the same point in time, because that is his role, I wouldn't be shocked if on Tuesday against Oklahoma State he comes in and he goes 2 for 5 from the floor. But certainly for him, his best chance to further cement himself as a big part of this rotation and be a super helpful piece as being that scoring option is to take advantage of these games where Bobby Pettiford is out and there might be a few more minutes to go around as one of those kind of 2 lead guards, ball handler types. Even though he still is more of a backup 2 to Grady Dick, he still could play some minutes as your ball handler, as we've seen as time over his 2 seasons with Kansas. The last bad goat is just Oklahoma. They've just, since that Alabama win, they just haven't looked good at all. And they've kind of fallen apart there. Not great attendance and everything. They weren't very good in the game. Certainly, Kansas did a lot to allow that to happen. But, Oklahoma might end up being the worst team in the Big 12. But it's funny because literally 2 weeks ago, we're talking about this team as being like on the outside looking into the bubble, but that they were in a bubble team. So I do think that, if Oklahoma was in, I don't know, name your other conference, like maybe the Big 10 or the SEC or the ACC, probably have a good enough record that they would be an NCAA tournament team. But that was certainly a struggle for OU in that game against Kansas. We're going to finish things up here, getting on to just looking around what the Big 12 is at and what we got coming up in the next day or two. But first, this episode of Locked On Jayhawks is brought to you by Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all of the fat and calories? Then you gotta try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know your goal is probably to eat a little bit healthier. And if you're like me and you want to eat healthier, especially after the Super Bowl, right? You're eating all this junk food, you want to get back on it. You want to do that without compromising taste. And I've just got the thing for you. For just that, you got to try Built. With Built, healthy is tasty. It is perfect for you to get back on your health kick after the Super Bowl or for your New Year's resolution still. And what makes them so good, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter, brownie, coconut almond. I'm not sure how they do it, but they taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better, they're healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 17 grams of protein. And now you don't just need to order them online. You still can. Built.com for your Built Bars. You can head to your nearest local Walmart, head to their pharmacy section, grab a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, coconut puffs, or head to your nearest Sam's Club and get a 13-bar box with hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later with Built Bar. So, update on the Big 12. Texas playing Texas Tech tonight. This episode came out a little later than I wanted. Traveling back from Phoenix and got in a little later than normal. So I'm trying to put this out as much as I can. That'll certainly have a big impact. If Texas loses at Tech, that is a huge loss, I guess, to keep everyone in it to a team who's at the bottom of the Big 12. But Tech has kind of found some life here, beating Kansas State and then having kind of a weird storm court or court storming, if I can say things right, at the end of the game. So we'll see, but they seem to be picking things up. And then for Kansas, the Oklahoma State game, like Oklahoma State, after winning at Iowa State, has really emerged. Musa Cisse, when he's been in the lineup, I think they're 7-1 in Big 12 play, and the one loss is barely to Kansas and Allen Fieldhouse. Like if Oklahoma State beats Kansas, they're a true Big 12 title contender at that point, especially if Texas loses to Texas Tech tonight. And then you still have all those teams clustered together. TCU's kind of in tough position after losing to Baylor, but it's funny because right now at the top, you have Texas at 9-3, Baylor and Kansas at 8-4, and then you have that cluster of teams after. Before the season started, it was, or I guess the Big 12 season started even, it was Baylor, Texas, Kansas. Those were the 3 favorites. And we went through all these tribes and tribulations, roller coasters. TCU blows out Kansas. Is it them? Kansas State starts out super hot. Iowa State with their great season. And now it's just funny because we got 6 games to go, and it's the 3 that you kind of expected at the top. Certainly there will be a lot of shaking and shifting moving forward, but I just think that's kind of funny, and that makes a very important week for Kansas at Oklahoma State and then Baylor at home. Definitely have to take care of the Baylor game at home. But I think you look at it, and it's almost like you need either a win in Oklahoma State or a Texas loss tonight, at the very least. If you get both, even better. It's a cherry on top. But realistically, if you can just kind of keep it within a game striking distance, not move back 2 games again, that would be pretty ideal for Kansas. We're going to preview the Oklahoma State game on tomorrow's show. We'll have that up for you ahead of the game in Stillwater. But that'll do this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find me on Twitter. Let me know if you want to talk about anything at D Johnson Radio. You can also subscribe to us wherever you get any of your podcasts. We're on, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, wherever. Give us a follow. Give us a rating if you're on a platform that can. And subscribe to us on YouTube, too. Give us a thumbs up if you could. Have a good rest of your day. Edition of Locked On Jayhawks right here